Fallout 4 has a wide variety of weapons to choose from your basic pistols to baseball bats, to some more advanced weaponry such as a mini nuke launcher, and then there's also the comical assortment like a walking cane. And then there is a weapon that is only put in for a joke for only one fight and has zero use afterwards. It would take only the absolute craziest of people to attempt to use a pacifist weapon in the most combat-centric game in the Fallout series. I meet the minimum requirements on the job application, so today we will attempt to beat Fallout 4 with a thirst zapper. So for the specifics on the weapon, it does 0 damage, but it can still aggro people by squirting at them. It is only used for the Colter fight, and that is it. I do have a secret on how to make it not suck, but we'll get to that later. So for the rules of the run, the only weapon I can use is the thirst zapper, and that is it. And also, I'll be letting myself use some moderate glitches, so I can't stick a Murph launcher on a squirt gun, but a couple of them will be required for the run to work. I do have some bonus objectives. If you watched the video that came out on this day a year ago, you might know where this will be going. And for my final rule, I am not allowing myself to gun bash. So how the hell am I going to make it through the entirety of Fallout 4 and the DLCs with a weapon that can do basically nothing? Well, let's find out. So today I'm going to be spicing things up and actually play as Nora instead of Nate. Mostly because I want to make myself Nuka-Girl, the mascot to persuade America to consume more unhealthy sugary beverages and funding every dentist's retirement plan. Though I really can't do much because it is pretty hard to make out the details of a low-resolution billboard. As for my special stats, I will need an intelligence of 6 today for the science perk, something that will be essential down the line, luck at 5 for the usual, and perception also at 5 so I can get refractor down the line. I really, and I mean really, should have dumped some points from endurance and strength into agility because rapid reload will be really nice to have, but that will be a problem for future past me. Eventually I play with Sean, find out my favorite TV show is cancelled because the time slot was filled in with another pointless reality show, and we book it inside the shelter before we ingest a lifetime's worth of Nuka radium. They do say beverages are enjoyed ice cold, but if you put a glass inside of a freezer for too long, they are prone to shattering. Well, Nate suffered his first death on the channel at least, and then I book it out of the vault, locking cockroaches behind doors because evolution spat at them, not giving them opposable thumbs. Then afterwards I grab my wristwatch and make it outside. So for the first order of business, if I want this run to work, I'm going to need to get prepared for Nuka-World. The thing about Nuka-World, and the number one reason I don't want to do many challenge runs featuring weapons from there, is that to get out of Nuka-World, you need to kill Colter, who is a boss level raider with a lot of health, meant for level 30 players. I normally end runs around level 23, and if you want to get out, you need to get past Colter. The first order of business is getting to level 17. 17 is so that way I can unlock the level 2 of the science skill, so I go around Sanctuary scrapping everything down to its finest materials, until there is nothing for the mice to make a nest in, and then I start to match creating fences until my knuckles bled and my sanity was but an illusion. If there are any satellites still in space at this time and hasn't made an impact crater on Earth, they will marvel at Posthenge, where I went a little unhinged. After grinding Post down for a while, I figured I could go for a break and get some more setup done, mostly money for the next step of my plan. Mind you, I have not finished phase 1. I do not perceive an order of operations. My dear Aunt Sally is crying in her grave, rest her soul. I began phase 5 of the plan and ventured towards a nearby junkyard to give the sentry bot a simple command to draw a perfect hand. It was too much for the robot and spontaneously combusted. At least I got a few free fusion cores for my troubles, perfect for power armor. I probably should have mentioned, but while I was in Sanctuary I found my one true love, a sea captain hat that was stashed away in the workshop. It is a match made in heaven, and I immediately donned it and it will not be coming off my head for a very long time. I then charged into a museum against my better judgment, don't question why, and then I bought some junk from the trash and ventured down the way towards Cambridge. The ghouls were throwing themselves on to dance, so I let the blender spend some quality alone time with his entourage. Since I'm a slut for experience, I say scum the end of mission for my bonus on experience, and anything that isn't nailed down, I tucked into my pocket for safekeeping, and the handcuffs are for a very fun night. And then afterwards we made our way to Arcjet. I really can't do much to help out Dance, but frankly with how powerful he is, I'm just here for moral support. He is able to save the caravan by killing the caravan, his brain is wired wrong, okay? And I booked it inside the dungeon. Dance does most of the heavy lifting, I don't need to do much here, just scavenge the loot for selling. Fusion cores, a bunch of weapons, and a lack of support. I should be pretty well funded hopefully. I even let the microwave bake on high for a while cooking the synths while I proceed to get a solid 7-minute night's sleep because I'm going to need to be up at 4 in the morning to edit this video. Nothing quite like living the grind culture like grinding in games. I got bored after a while and put the fork into the microwave, watching everyone in the room get baked, and not in the sunshine tiding sort of way. I looted everything not turned to dust, let Dance be the hero he always wanted to be, and I stole all the credit taking the transmitter. Once again, I need all the experience I can, so I save loaded and got a few free levels for my troubles, and that step is done. I do need to unload my junk, so I traveled to Suggs and freed every weapon from my body, giving me a bunch of caps. It has been a while and my knuckles are ready to bleed again, so I went back to Sanctuary and proceeded to make my joints cry harder than a devil getting an SSS combo on his ass, and after a while I finally got to level 17, getting me the level 2 science perk, so when I make it to Nuka-World I can craft the weapon mod I need. Now I can go around the world getting all the materials I will need, mostly 3 adhesive, 8 fiberglass, and 5 nuclear materials for the weapon mod, and a bunch of other materials to craft the ammo. I went to a couple of vendors, thinking I'll only need a handful of materials for this to work, but I will learn the error of my ways soon enough. I also brought along God backwards to help with the cause when I get there. Well, I guess it's time to head south to certain death. On my way to the train station to the afterlife, I might have upset a swarm of flies who were feasting on my lunch, and Fred jumped to the end of diplomacy and sent Jules up like a pop balloon in a parade, and then I arrived at the 420th camp to pass on it for now. I want a piece of power armor for what's to come. Thankfully there is one hanging out outside the federal ration stockpile, hanging out in a trailer. Once I alerted the place to my presence, I ran inside and put it on. Sure, it is missing legs, but who needs legs with arms like these? I booked it out of there and had a very hot day with a bunch of gunners. This is like the only thing I tested on a prior run. I carefully navigated around the side of Nuka-World and dropped in on the transit center after coming face first with the living blender. Dance is not alive, so he doesn't count. I hid in a side room while the robot from a horror movie walked around. After losing interest in the small fry, I could talk to Harvey, and he lets me go into Nuka-World. I made a backup save in case things go wrong, because once you board the pain train, there is no going back. I listened to the ramblings of Gage, and now I can run through the gauntlet. Oh, how bad could this be? Oh. Thankfully this is a Bethesda game, and there are ways to break it. I look at a door, and because doors have a gap in it, I could break the chain. Does this make sense? No, but we should not question the logic of Todd Howard, or else he will send us out to the starfield without a helmet. I decided to make a pit stop in the marketplace, and at least I can buy materials if need be, so I'm not totally boned. Only 98%. So while you all might be yelling at me to pick up the squirt gun inside Colter's boss room, sure I can, but as it turns out there are many other super soakers around the park, so I don't need to worry too much. I sprinted my way to the north for a while, taking whatever stuff I can, and the raiders think I'm their boss. I have not even met Gage or Colter yet. In the northmost part of the theme park, there is the Roll to Refreshment, where birds will fly into your head and crimes against blood sugar are committed. I can't fight anything here, so I sprint my way to the very end, and here there is a terminal that will be activated only once we beat Nuka-World's DLC, the most combat-focused DLC. But I brought along power armor for this very reason. All the lobsters and crabs here took a little too much of the glowing Kool-Aid, and there's also Saltrons in the mix here. Anyways, I try to do the power armor glitch, where if you get out of power armor while in third person and look to the left, and button match getting back into your power armor, you can just walk right through walls. I did suck at one point and got a beam to the head. Kinda deserved. I do find it works much better on controller, and I could walk right on through and go down the elevator. Inside the basement there are schematics for Project Cobalt, and a free thirst zapper. I modify the thirst zapper, and now instead of water it fires off a splash of refreshment, which is basically a gamma gun with some damage on the side. I only had enough materials to craft one bullet of weaponized Nuka-Cola, just one, so I thought I could just duplicate the ammo. I then traveled to the Nuka-World Red Rocket, thinking it could be a settlement I can use to set up duplication, but I am heartbroken. Turns out the settlement does not unlock until after you've beat the DLC. That means I cannot cheat my way into having sufficient amount of ammo to compensate being stuck with only one weapon. And that is awful. I'm going to have to make every bullet by hand. But before I dive headfirst into scrapping my dignity, I did wander into the Galactic Zone and used the power armor clip to get me a massive upgrade in my power armor. Like, legit, this is one of the best power armors in the game, Creation Club included, and I will frankly need it. I then spent probably the next half hour waiting on a bench, selling what I could for more ammo materials, and went to fight Colter. Instead of going through the entire gauntlet, I could go into the back door in the outside portion and head right into the boss room. I let the big man taunt me, and inside the locker room I grabbed myself another thirst zapper, and I made a funny joke on the matter. Turns out, 12 ammo is definitely not enough for Colter. The damage is weak, but power armor does add protection to the irradiation, so yeah. And also the number one caveat is that the weapon has a 5-second reload speed per bullet. Yeah, this is gonna be a slog. I then said hell with it, Reloaded a safe and spent another hour getting materials until I had 40 bullets. Speeding up the fight, this has gotta be one of the biggest drags of a fight I've ever had since I fought Alduin with the ebony mail. The ammo is definitely going to be a concern because it requires 2 acid, 4 copper, 3 crystals, and 2 Nuka-Colas to make 1 bullet. Easily one of the steepest ammos out there, Fat Man included. And for Colter, basically scratch damage. Throughout the fight, I was really not liking the weapon taking 5 seconds to reload. That is Fat Man slow. Though the ammunition is kinda cute, this is why I really should have taken more points in agility. I will be rushing the rapid reload after I'm done here. What else should I mention? Oh yeah, to upgrade the weapon you need Science and Gun at level 2 to 4, which ranges from level 17 for level 2, all the way to level 41. For those who tackle the DLCs and complete it, no big deal. Starting the game, very big deal. Late into the fight I remembered drugs are a thing. I never used drugs as it is. The fight ended up taking about 5 minutes, but sure as felt like longer, and it was not a fun time. At least I could come out on top after a grueling 3 hours stuck in this hellhole. I was tempted to save scum for an idiot savant, but the gods must have taken pity on my plummet into depravity and bestows upon me an idiot savant, making this entire torture fest worth it. Once Gage lets me outside, I immediately told everyone here to f*** off, and I traveled back to the Commonwealth. As soon as I was done loading in, I took a Death Star beam right to the face. I love being back. I returned to my post of Sanctuary and constructed my atom duplication contraption. Listen, I spent way too long making ammo. I will duplicate my ammo so I don't overlevel from crafting. Inside our fridge I did find a Nuka-Cola cherry, which is going to be very important here in a few seconds. So I want to make a better weapon, and I don't want to wait a few levels, so instead, I do a very simple glitch. Hover over a mod in the list that is above what you want to upgrade, select modify and hold it, let go and down at the same time, and if done right, you can create a mod for a weapon even if you don't have the level requirements yet. Honestly surprised I did it first try. And with my Nuka-Cola, I weaponized the high fructose corn syrup, and I duped it doggy style. I went to Concord and blasted the raiders here into the next life, and the cherry gun does explosive damage. So if I can make my mark, I can kill with ruthless efficiency. So the joke weapon has now been turned lethal. I repeat, the joke weapon has been turned lethal. I blitz my way through the Museum of Freedom, sending these 7 up to heaven, and I talk to the gravy boat to continue the quest. Back on the streets, I used my doom juice and squirt all over the raiders. When the Deathclaw came out, yeah, it's not a fan of very sugary beverages, and just rips into everyone here. Honestly, the weapon is now actually kinda decent, and I could clear out the town without too much fuss, ignoring the reload thing anyways. I then talked to Preston and returned to Sanctuary to get the Minutemen quest underway. Also, during the walk back, Preston was taking a sweet time, so I sped up the process a bit. Well, since settlements are the name of the game, I talked to the Abernathy's to get their quest started. Because of how horrible my reload is, I will be relying on VATS pretty often during this run, just so I can ensure I can hit my target. And at the satellite ditch, I blast my way through, though I am pretty awkward when I miss. Akak wasn't the biggest concern here, I blasted and I could take her out. One of her friends though took her minigun, so essentially I have to deal with 2 Akaks, but at least I could come out on top. Also, roaches are not much of a cola creature. I returned to the Abernathy's to hand in their locket, and then I cleared out the settlement. Oh, right, I never mentioned my bonus objective. I then returned to the satellite array and wandered my way east. Turns out dogs are not very interested in Cola Cherry. At 10 Pines, well, I want the workshop, and I will be taking it by force. And I'm probably the reason why they always point a gun at you. I return to Sanctuary and complete Surge's quest, and I failed Preston's request successfully, and I'm promoted to General. I thought I could do some early purification, so I wandered my way towards the diner and shoved 23 flavors of pain down Wolfgang's throat. While I was at the diner, I find out that Carla stole my power armor. I will not let this stand, so I engaged in a long battle with the trash can. Eventually Trudy helped out with retrieving my armor. This is a reminder to any traveling vendors, don't steal my armor or I will steal your lives. Earlier than planned. I sold my stuff to Trudy and then got a return on my investment. And since I'm next to the Starlight Drive-In, I blasted the mole rats to the starry skies and claimed another settlement that will never be settled. Well, since I now need a new power armor frame, thanks Carla, I traveled to Concord and did the jump from the church onto the museum that you can do to get power armor early. Let's just hope nobody steals this set of armor. I decided to wander my way towards Oberlin Station, nearly getting a hug from whatever athlete was paid to be sponsored with catchy marketing terms, and on my way to Grey Garden the Cola Bear nearly gets his revenge. The robots were converted to my sugary beverage ways, even if all the additives and soft drinks can corrode metals. I then wandered down the railroad tracks and I immediately failed another mission. Given this is Fallout 4, failure means nothing. And also I introduced the aliens to our sodas of Earth, but it ended up popping its head. And since I am in the area, I thought I could hit up Vault 81. I am frankly surprised I could pass the hard speed check going into the vault, given my low charisma stat. I held off for a second on my slaughter, just waiting until I made my way into the vault. I actually never installed a mod to kill them all. Like the restoration run, I just set everyone's essential status to 0, then I could start the conversion. The only NPCs who were interested in defending the place were the security. Kinda makes sense, so I just reenacted the introduction of Fallout 3, picking off the security one at a time, making sure every shot counts. Once I was done with the lobby, next stop is the residential district. Because I don't have any mods installed, I can't kill the children, but I'm not that much of a psychopath. I just killed everyone huddled up in a corner in fear, all in one shot. Once I was done with my purification, too bad Foresight didn't have the foresight of someone cleaning out the vault, and after clearing out the entrance, I'm satisfied in converting the residents to the irradiated soft drinks of the future, and I continued my adventures. For a while I did some random activities such as letting a mosquito go nuts on all the soda in my veins, clearing out the hardware town of its radar problems, and grabbing the green paint and handing it to Abbott to add yet another sports drink sponsor to the long list of sponsors for the local sports teams. And also while I was in Diamond City I was used as a propaganda piece while I stole the keys and the sights of everyone. Next up I ripped up the Riptide until the raiders were wasted, except I was getting RNG'd pretty hard. And since I was in the area I cleaned out the Hangman's Alley, these raiders were subject to the 19 out of 19 ways of pain, so I get another settlement under my belt. And since I was in the area, I did stop by the library for an easy bobblehead, except things were a little explosive getting in. Once I am more SMRT, I fended off the guest super mutants in the library, all for more experience. I really want a few more levels because I'm getting pretty close to some more upgrades. I wandered my way further east until I made it to the combat zone. I engaged in mortal combat with all the raiders here, so I can unlock my club Rock Shandy. I mean, knocking out a potential companion. Yeah, I ended up forgetting about companions for a while, but oh well. I really want to focus getting my agility bubblehead, and I figured, why not, I could go south into the most dangerous part of the map. On my journey there I took out a not-so-prim Slim, never knew this guy existed, and I threw down with some raiders, and upgrading my armor in the process. Except no way I'm getting rid of my sea captain hat. I love my captain hats for some stupid reason. And yeah, I hate having to fire one shot, spend a minute reloading, and missing because of weird hitboxes. And in my journey to the south, I wandered into Jamaica Plain, and yeah, I had a blast with the zombies here. I had quite a fantastic time, mostly hunting down all the ghouls here because to unlock the settlement, you have to kill every single ghoul in town, including the ones way outside the settlement zone. Though I will say it was pretty fun watching the ghouls flying around in a hilarious ragdoll fashion. I nearly forgot about the ghouls in the main building, so I became a soda jerk and drowned the ghouls in the syrup of doom until I could finally get the settlement under my belt. Well, because I'm still pretty weak, I don't fancy a hot day with Fat Man since I Quincy, so I just snuck my way to the south of town and past the Peabody house. Turns out you can't even harm the family. I just left them be and marched my way off to the east. I thought I could sneak past the energy plant, but they also have a Fat Man that nearly nuked me. Okay, that's enough excitement for one night. Well, at least one ghoul ascended to the heavens. At the wrecked ship, I ripped and tore at my heart's content, and I had my normal way with the raiders. At least with the narrow confines, I could kinda safely pick off the raiders, though the survivalists do live up to their survival part of their names, requiring 3 cherry bombs to the face to take down. Also, Regs went to riches, and I was able to solo the entire boat, grabbing my agility bobblehead, and honestly worth the trip down here, mini nuke notwithstanding. Well, since we are how deep in the video now, and we haven't even really started the main story, I figured we could go ahead and start that. Yeah, the upgrade to my squirt gun can't come soon enough, as the triggermen require about 2 to 3 shots to take down. Not too bad all things considered, but remember, 5-second reload speed. The intro party wasn't too bad, and frankly running and gunning is the name of the game. Just ping-ponging around mobster to monster like a highly caffeinated maniac. Inside the vault, I'm honestly surprised how many legendaries I've been fighting. Makes sense since I am in the 20s. In fact, I'm higher level now than when I normally am when I finish a run, plus playing on normal, but it still feels way more than it should be. Also, something I found out, if you use VATS with a Thirst Zapper, it lets you fire off 2 rounds before the game just forgets what it's doing. He goes to show how little testing they actually did with the weapon, if at all. This is Rush Creation Club levels of jank. The rest of the first section of the vault plays out as normal, just with more soda breaks when the 12 packs of pop cost as much as a 12 pack of beer. As for Dino, I normally get a 1 shot on the fossil, but today it requires 2. Oh well, I rescued my lockpick, and together we made our escape out of the vault. I waste absolutely no time in the pleasantries, I became a doctor of death, dispensing 23 flavors of pain. Also, we had a shootout with another legendary triggerman. This is like the third or fourth one I encountered down here, by the way, and it dropped an acrobatics leg. I have honestly never seen an acrobatic legendary drop, outside the pair you get in the secret cubby in Mass Fusion, so that's neat. As for Skinny and his men, because Skinny wants to lose some weight, I switched to the Diet Nuka-Cola. Turns out diet soda isn't that much healthier for you because of all the artificial stuff in there, and given this is the Fallout universe, there's probably at least 3 FDA violations in the soda. So suffice to say, Skinny and his men don't make it out of this excursion alive. Well, after a 2-minute load, we escape the vault and return to Diamond City, and we spend some time discussing whether it is better to refer to the sugary beverage as pop or soda, something that can cause a riot in the streets, and we find the patent for a new cereal-based soda. Since I am a glutton for experience, and also I want to get one more level under my belt so I can get the final upgrade to my third Zapper, I start just doing the most random of things. I spend some time clearing out the outside of the federal ration stockpile. Fun fact, during this battle I went to dump off my junk and return to do the interior, but I completely forgot about coming back. There's probably some study out there linking memory loss and pop or something. Well, I told Preston my bloodthirsty tendencies got the better of me again, and with how many settlements I had procured, with or without violence, I thought I could retake the castle, but no. Something I finally figured out is that the castle is tied to having completed quests successfully, so I guess I could play things the moral way. For now. I got high on sunshine since Preston wants that settlement, and I can turn in the quest. So time for more wandering. I thought, sure, I could take on Boomer with my squirt gun. What's the worst that can happen? Death is the worst that could happen. So my solution to this is playing around the rocks. Since I have some agility to my name, I can sneak around and pick off the small fry. I thought it could be cheeky and make Boomer use as many nukes by blind firing, but yeah, I always underestimate how powerful they actually are. Somehow I could pick off the crew with my explosive pops, and after a long game of cat and mouse, I can claim the settlement for nobody. I continue to wander my way east, messing around at the General Atomics Galleria. Any experience is good experience, even if it's a violent one. Sadly, their soda fountains only squirt out oil. Oh well. I thought I would have to clear out the super mutant camp near the slug. Never ended up needing to, but oh well. Any violence means a higher kill count. Gotta get a high score after all. While I was wiping out some bloatflies, I managed to hit level 25, meaning I can get my final upgrade. But 2 birds, 1 can or something. Green Top wants me to clear out the National Guard site, but as I was approaching the entrance, I watched the battle off in the distance, so I joined in on the fray. I will say it wasn't the smartest thing in the world to rush down a super mutant with a missile launcher, but have I ever made smart plays? Well, one super mutant wanted to become Superman, but he drank some kryptonite water and didn't make it very far. I also wanted to spread the violence equally, so settlers had to go. The training yard was quick and brutal, just the way I like it. Had a legendary Reaver drop a winning Fat Man. Funny because I found a few legendary Fat Men during the run. Well, the cool new glow-in-the-dark soda can't be sold due to so many health violations, so I went to the junk ideas pile, and I turned in the quest, but still not enough to take the castle. Well, I guess it is time to upgrade my weapon kit. I return to Nuka-World and enter the arcade, and grab me 2 more third Zappers so I have the complete set, and use the mod glitch to get myself the ability to launch Quantum Nuka-Cola, which is basically a mini nuke in a bottle. I tested the result to myself to see how close I could stand. Honestly, I don't know what I should have expected. Well, with power to my name, I figured now would be a good time to take care of Kellogg. I introduced the crappy RC Cola to the RV park, then charged into Fort Hagen. I am pretty close quarters here, so probably not the best idea to let loose a Thermo Nuka-Cola blast indoors. If the piggy bank run is anything to go by, doing that is a quick way to lose your arms. When things open up, I let loose my war crimes in a can, and it gets results. Less aiming required. And when I taught the Taunter a lesson, I got a level up, and I can finally take rapid reload. This means my reload goes from 5 seconds to about 3.5, which is frankly a gigantic upgrade, but it comes with a new glitch where it would take me a few seconds to fire again. I am really thinking QA really skipped on this weapon's upgrades, because like anyone would find it, let alone use it. So yeah, if it looks like I'm just standing around doing nothing, it's just the game being the game. As for the Nuka Pebbles, I didn't waste any introductions and just dropped a nuke on his smug face. Took 2 quantums to take down, and not just 1. Well, suffice to say, him and his droids didn't last very long. Well, I grabbed the secret recipe from his brain for future limited time flavors, watch future targets move in, and give them an early taste of what's to come, then return to Diamond City to continue along the story. Before I dig around brain matter getting a life story dumped on me, I thought I could give my soft drinks a swan song before they get discontinued like every other halfway decent new flavor. Took 3 refreshing swigs for Swan to go down, frankly not all that bad. When I arrived in Good Neighbor, I gave Finn a nice refreshment for this probably hot spring day. While I was in town, I might have wandered into the wrong neighborhood. I lack common sense. I thought these shady back alleys are safe to visit in the dead of night. Well, I get a crash course on sodas before the companies made them all so Coke specialty, and I can progress the main story. But I'm not really in the mood to go to the land drenched in either green food coloring or the special soda made by overworked Amazon warehouse workers. I figured I could spend my free time doing better things, like drinking molten lava. So I walked a short way to the ironworks to throw down with the pyromaniacs. I can relish in the fact that water from my squirt gun beats these forges flamethrowers. Okay, I might have been carried by a brotherhood squad, who knows. The insides were a bit annoying, can't really fire my nukes in close quarters, a pyro's home field advantage. Once I could thin out the numbers, I could use my fun cola. As for Slag, I wasted no time in letting loose my blast of Death Sani, and it really wasn't that hard of a fight. Lead everyone around the room, grab the explosive bobblehead, the only way I can increase my weapon's damage, failed to learn about the dangers of putting my hand on a hot stovetop, and reunited everyone at the Finch farm. I actually didn't want to start my omnicidal rampage because I remembered now I might need settlements with people in it to destroy the Pridwin with the Minutemen. I handed in my quest, and Preston is now finally ready to retake the castle. Finally! I heard crowds taste really good boiled in colas. The courtyard cleanup wasn't too much to write home about. Well, besides my weapon being jank as all hell, the normal mileworks I'm not phased at, it's the bloody small fry trying to kill him with my weapon's non-responsive reloads. Well, after turning many eggs sunny side up, the queen comes out to play, and honestly, I was expecting the queen to take more than 3 quantums in the face to go down. Well, the mireworks were swept away, and victory was achieved, so I guess time to put the Minutemen on the back burner for a while. I figured I could go ahead with the main story, charging my way into the glowing sea. I somehow nuked the football player before the first inning, so I don't have to worry about that. I tried to persuade Phyllis to our cause, she didn't want to play nice, so I used a different form of persuasion. I did run into a Mirelurk King ambush, but pawn to g7 checkmated him. I did get lost at some point and ran into art attacking art, so I painted a mural with their components. Eventually, after getting lost more times than driving through the fog while having a dizzy spell, seriously, that's not very fun, I finally found my way to Somerville Place, aka the second worst settlement in the game because basically nothing is nearby, and they want me to clear out a super mutant camp. Well, nothing much besides wiping out a pack of mongrels whose bark's worse than their bite. The legendary that spawned here had a very funny armor piece that I can't really use, and the scrap palace went to the scrapyard in the sky. The battle was pretty easy and I could get another settlement I get to have fun with later. Since I am in the area and I can't remember what bobblehead is in the gunner vault, I thought, why not, I could clear it out. On the outside all the gunners were gone, so it was pretty easy to get inside the vault. Getting past the roadblock was a completely different story. I had to let all the gunners come to me to get my sugar to replace their blood, and really once the assaultron was gone, I could clean up the rest of the vault and I could rescue the imprisoned truck. Now my action figures can finally get their delivery of highly questionable beverages. And the bobblehead here was heavy weapons. Water might be dense, but not dense enough for this perk. Fighting my way out of the vault was a different story. All the gunners finally showed up, and must have been on one hell of a bender, and one of them had a legendary fat man. Okay, this run is very cursed today. Well, the glowing sea wasn't too exciting, just nothing but a very mellow yellow filter. I did launch some explosive beverages into the church here for a multi-kill, so that's nice. Well, not so much nice for them. And also a Deathclaw thought they could taunt me. Honestly, I'm surprised that with my cruddy weapon I could one-shot an angry lizard. Oh well, so be it. Well, since I am in the neighborhood, I thought I could play with the children of Adam. I wasted no time with the pleasantries. One blast from afar and half the crew were wiped out. In fact, they never seem to register my presence. I mean, I am nuking everyone with basically their favorite beverage, so at least they can be a little bit happy before getting their wings. I blasted the Deathclaw outside of Virgil's cave into another timeline, then I talked to the monster who used to be a scientist to unlock green tech. I honestly love going through green tech with a powerful weapon. I don't think any of the gunners really recognize my presence until they are blasted into another world. At the very least, I'm in power armor, so I could take a missile to the face and live. And really that is the only thing they can do to me. There is supposed to be a greeting party at the elevator, but much like my school days, every team slot was picked, so I'm left out of the fun. So for the courser, truth be told, I wasn't aiming at the courser himself, more the crew here to add to my kill counter. I might have blasted myself destroying half my power armor, but oh well.
Help me.
Sure, I can help you. I have a long-range weapon with no fall-off, and I'm on top of a tower, and there's a bit of very high-leveled ghouls ripe for experience. What do you think will happen? I even blast the raiders nearby just because it is fun to do. I then ditched my power armor for the time being and made my way to the railroad, and on my way there I encountered Art. Again. I thought I already killed them. I did have the thought cross my mind of randomizing the railroad password, but I would probably mess it up. Yeah, I didn't even bother wasting my time with the small talk. I just blasted into the darkness and wiped out every railroad member into small little giblets. And yeah, if you're fighting someone with explosives, helpful word of advice, maybe don't bunch up into a group. With the railroad's hopes and dreams crushed by a soda-crazed maniac and the light bulb investigated, I figured since I'm in the neighborhood I could get into the cabin house. Well, the sentry bot was very nice to explode into 2 fusion cores, so pretty soon I could run more power armor. It took a few attempts, but eventually they decided to let the psychopath in. Well, I was quite welcomed into the cabin house. Afterwards, I gave the chip to Virgil, and he gives me his plans. But I have plans of my own, no loose ends and all. I then talked to Preston and Surges, build a very stable teleporter that isn't held together by wet duct tape, and potential health violations could make for a new flavor, and then I'm in the Institute, and I get an Idiot Savant level up, giving me 2 full level ups. For a second, I did think about delivering a Hawaiian punch to Father's face, but instead I do need access to the rest of the Institute, and once the doors were open, I thought I could have a little fun. Fun fact, during your first visit to the Institute, nobody is essential. So yeah, I let loose my quantum energy and gave the Sins 10 times their allotted daily caffeine intake, which is basically a normal day for me. The drinks may be soft, but the pain is definitely hard. Well, he phased into the floor. I went into each lab, wiping out every named and unnamed NPC until the Institute was nothing but a ghost town. I was going to save Father for last, but seems like he's in hiding. Or he's in some body pile, who knows. Like, I looked all over and I could not find him. There's always a second chance later. So did you know when you escape the Institute, if you kill any NPCs, for every one that you kill, there will be 2 Sins that will spawn in the 2 rooms during your escape. I thought I could blast the first room with the quantum. Oh, right, blast radius. For the first room, I would go down the elevator, unleash a cherry-flavored beverage into the crowd, go up to heal, and repeat. Yeah, suffice to say, it was messy. I even brought one secret out with me during the elevator ride. And a half. Eventually, I could thin out the crowd enough to finish the fight, and yeah, I will say the body count is quite impressive. Well, I want some money, so I looted every body I could find. I am going to make a f***ing killing off these fusion cells. And there is another group of Sins on the teleporter room, so I blasted a couple shots, managed to get a quinquagentuple kill. Might be a nonagentuple kill, I'm not really for sure. 2 contents were enough to get me 2 full level ups. I entered the Institute at level 31, and I left at level 36. And yes, I looted everybody once again once I was done with the total purification. I think I killed close to 300 Sins during my excursion to the Institute, and left with over 4,000 fusion cells. I think this was a net positive experience. Well, it is now endgame, and now we are supposed to blow up the Institute. Honestly, I think I did such a good job the game should have ended, but oh well. I figured some spring cleaning is in order. I then traveled to Diamond City and removed everyone's immortality flag. Well, the battle was brief and messy. I fired off a cola into the middle of town for a marketing stint, but it turned south, so now I have to pay a lot of money to get all the bad publicity off the internet. Mo at least knew the one way to defeat an explosive maniac is get right up in their grill. And it was a quick cleanup going around the town, picking off the stragglers. Had to put Nick and Ellie down, though Ellie was not wanting to go down without it talking, and Piper was no longer popping up about my war crimes. Well, I figure I could do a little more bloodshed, and we're better than the blimp in the sky. Should have waited until after I visited Far Harbor, but oh well. I got my ride share that has been hanging out for what feels like 2 weeks at this point, and I am glad the vertibird was in no clip mode, or else I would be chopped into the fruits that you see on the side of cocktails. And my lovely captain hat does look so in place here, and I decided to be a smartass and pick a fusion core off a Brotherhood night. Twice. I did the required meet and greet so I can buy stuff from Tegan before I proceed to let the house win. Mostly getting some armor, and sadly I will put the captain hat down. I need some defense for what's to come. I meet Maxim on the deck, and instead of following through with the Brotherhood of Steel, I declared war and gave him a nice refreshing beverage after a long day of being a pain in my ass. Yeah, all the Brotherhood Knights aren't very pleased with the whole man overboarding thing. I took the battle to the main hangar, and I had to hang out up high. The process was simple: fire and hide. At the very least, from all the wanton violence, I am getting so many levels in fusion cores, so I should be good with power armor for at least the rest of the run. During the chaos, I finally pulled the fork out of the toaster, and I didn't really see any of the main characters besides Ingram. Well, because I need to make an emergency landing, I stole a set of power armor, left by way of Forecastle, and plummeted onto the airport below. Sure, these knights have power armor, but it doesn't really protect you from nuclear annihilation by way of sugary beverage. Also, the game really hates me fighting at the airport, and it starts to lag very hard. Eventually, with the airport purified, I made a retreat back to Sanctuary. I then gave Sturgis the relevant information, and traveled to the castle to meet up with Ronnie Shaw. With the Brotherhood really pissed off at me, or what's left of them, I would need some way to blow them up. Also, I got lost getting into the basement of the faction I have finished the game with the most. I'm not very bright, okay? At least I'm bright enough to not get blown up. As for Sarge, I infused him with a surge of energy from the heavily sponsored modern energy drinks, which have such a high caffeine content, one drink is enough to give a heart attack. Heart palpitations are not fun. Same true for running the triglycerides into the stratosphere. I got the cannon built, and unleashed 200 years of pent-up anger at a shed. I also spent some time going to settlements building the artillery for the Brotherhood later on when I finally remember. When I fast traveled to the police station ahead of Bunker Hill, I might have forgotten the Brotherhood kinda hates my guts right now. Don't worry, the soda does too. And I kinda got a high on exploding car fumes. I did run across Ada duking it out with some junk bots. I don't discriminate on the blast, and yeah, I killed Ada. Alright, 1 DLC down, 3 to go. I just look at the runtime, and we're still a long ways out. I then wandered around Cambridge for a while, may or may not have deconstructed a construction site with all the explosions, and eventually arrived at a monument that will soon be a tombstone. And when I was asked at the gate if I was a caravan or raider, I answered honestly, and they don't really care. Sorry of Bethesda, everyone. Well, I gave them a reason to care, as I blasted anyone and everyone that came across me. And yeah, not every raider is into the mug lifestyle. Also, since I was in the area, I gave Ironsides a taste of irony, and now they will be forever shipwrecked. Since I am the cleanup portion of the run, I figured I should probably keep a running tab of any remaining settlements I should clean up. I am an old-fashioned fool, so I brought out a pen and oversized notebook paper so I can keep track of places the vendors have not delivered any soda in the last week, and I think all the current ones in stock are more flat than my personality reading the script. Though I think sharing this list online has warranted at least 6 FBI agents wanting to visit my home, along with me being put on several more lists. Well, the first place that crossed my mind is Quincy, probably one of the most dangerous places in the game. The best way to tackle Quincy is to go up the roadway near the energy plant, then proceeding to nuke the gunners out of this world. Word of advice, don't get Goomba stomped by Clint. Baker is really the hardest part of Quincy, hard spot to get to, with a mini nuke and missile launcher, but the Baker was a little too big from the blast. And for the third boss, Tessa, I had a hard time trying to blast her. I was also recording at 4 in the morning, and I'm still waking the NA aim out of me. The rest of Quincy wasn't too hard to clean up. I accidentally mixed up the caravan guard and gunner, but in all reality, they're all worm food in the end. I wonder if that is going to be the new flavor coming soon. Then again, Coca-Cola tastes like worms as it is. And since the Atom Cats are nearby, I thought I could pay them a visit. These cool cats might think they're all cool, but how cool are they when drinking the most popular soft drink for mass carnage? Yeah, I don't think so. Also, one Atom Cat had a plasma flamethrower. I never knew that weapon was in the game. Well, that cleanup was quick, and honestly I was expecting things to take a lot longer. I then traveled to the Warwick homestead and declared war. Quick. I then decided to make my way to Covenant, but I never really marked any nearby locations, so it was a very long hike. Just fighting a lot more Rust Devils, I really hate Automatron. I was also ambushed by a bunch of synths, probably not very fond of the whole wiping out the Institute and hundreds of their friends. I then took on the Super Mutant Homestead and dispensed the Hammer of Justice. I did get lost at one point at Wonder near the Mutant Hospital, and had to keep on backing up to avoid getting blasted back to the Sprite Age. And at least the mutants just stopped working. It just works. Eventually I recruited another settlement from Florida's clutches, and I made my way to Covenant. I answered the questions truthfully, and as soon as the front doors were open, I skipped to the end of the quest, and forcefully proclaimed the settlement for myself. Deezer had his own brand of lemonade, and in a minute the town was made into a graveyard, and back in Boston I remembered about the amphitheater. Yeah, they were pretty amped up. And on my way I saw the vertebrate just getting annihilated, so I had to see what caused the explosion, and I saw a raider with a very fancy minigun. I got up to the roof, and holy shit, this weapon is cracked. I am getting really tempted to do a Fallout 4 Everything is Legendary run, when I get the brain cells and balls to get into modding besides changing a 1 to a 0 in the game files. I was going to wander around more, but a Sentry bot caught my attention. I wandered onto the recording scene of the next Transformer movie, filled with 20% more product placements. I thought Nuka-Cola could share the screen time that is mostly taken up by military propaganda. Well, next up on my to-kill list is Trinity Tower, so I just blasted my way through, although my armor is deteriorating before my eyes. The climb was pretty quick, Fist fisted himself, and I could rescue Rex and Strong. The ride down was not very eventful, and at the base floor as soon as I got my experience ding, I dinged him off my hit list. So now I have become Macbeth. Continuing the theme of ping-ponging around the map without a general direction, I decided Vault 88 is next on my list. While I had a vertebrate try to land on me, didn't go well for them. So despite doing Vault 88 a couple months ago for the Santa run, for the life of me, I could not figure out how to get in. Like it took me 5 minutes of looking to find the door. It was sad. Well, the DLC is super short. Just had to tell the raiders the soda fountain is down for cleaning and to remove themselves from the facility. I opened up the vault to come across a bunch of ghouls coming from my craft brew. Yeah, nuking myself in close range is probably not the best course of action. I started the task the overseer gives you, and before I venture deep into the facility, I should probably get my armor repaired. When I returned there were already taste testers to see if the new beverage is safe for human consumption. Sadly, it is actually not safe. I knew we shouldn't have gotten cheap on the ingredients. Well, before I wrapped up my time in the earth, I thought I could try my hand at a Mirelurk Queen, and now I am two-shotting the queens on normal. I think I've come to love using explosives. It is quite a blast. Well, with 2 of the 4 DLCs done, my next stop should be Far Harbor, just a clean shot to the northeast with no way to get distracted. When I arrived at the slog, I saw an Enclave encampment, so I gave them a bit of my love. I should probably at some point get around to playing Fallout 3, assuming you can play it without it self-destructing on modern PCs. Oh yeah, I legally reclaimed the slog for the Minutemen. Thought you should know that. Well, I continued to wander my way east, clearing out the outside of the Dunwick, but without a sniper rifle, and you would not guess it, more rust bots. And out here for a while I found a lot of sentry bots, so I should be good on Fusion Cores for a while, and at one point I had 20 of them. I also got lost in my wanderings and decided to claim the nearby ghoul house for the settlement, and a vertebrate guide's blades caught up in the telephone wires. While I blasted out the ghouls at Coop Manor, clearing it out including the root beer cellar. Okay, no more getting distracted. Okay, I did decide to go into the canning place and blast into Cannibal here. And I also got distracted again and decided to clear out the lighthouse. The top was glowing, but I'm a simple-minded moth, guided to the flame that will eventually cause me to catch fire. The children of Adam really can't do much to power armor, so they join their friends in the atomic brew. Turns out the top of the lighthouse has a glowing one, so I shoved that glow stick right into the trash, and because I'm at a very nice sniping platform, I have fun with the children in the radiation pit nearby. Well, another settlement is under our belts, and that is essentially every settlement barring 1 or 2. I also made sure to clear out the pit, so with that distraction out of the way, now I can make it to the Nakanos. And now I'm wandering towards Salem. My brain is a lost cause. Barney Rook really needs to look out for the madman in power armor wielding a squirt gun instead of the seafood. And because I'm great at following directions, I ended up in the Museum of Witchcraft. Yeah, the Deathclaw might be savage, but I'm always down to ravage. 2 shots and the one spooky but not very Deathclaw is down, and I got a pristine egg. So now with this distraction done, now I should make my way to Far Harbor. And now I'm going in the complete opposite direction. Got Leonard to take care of first. And truth be told, my reasoning for coming this way besides telling the guards outside the asylum I refuse to admit myself, although my war crime list says otherwise, is actually to drop off the Deathclaw egg. Well, I'm not very nice, so I blast a glow-in-the-dark gecko into next week and take the egg back so I can have a nice omelet. Also nearby a Mirelurk Queen and some junk bots were having a dispute, so I had to break them up. Okay, enough getting carried away. Now I go to Far Harbor. But I decided to kill another Mirelurk Queen that happened to be there. Honestly, with how strong I am now, the queens are just regular enemies. Well, after 5 paragraphs of distractions, I finally talked to Kenji and took a boat ride to Far Harbor. Not going to get myself distracted very much here, because I want to play the DLC in a very specific way to get the outcome I want. I played defense near Canada's Pride, though I do think a few settlers were caught in the blast radius, but honestly it just bumps up my final kill count. Once the introduction to the wildlife were done, I began hiking my way up to Acadia by myself by taking on whatever got in my way. Thanks to the map being pretty small, I made it to the observatory and began a conversation with Dima Balls. And after a few back and forth conversations, next stop is the nucleus. There wasn't much on the way there, some Yao Guai made things unbearable, and the trappers were trapped in with me. Well, I could drink the funny Gatorade to get into the Children of Adam, but because of how I play the DLC, I felt a more forceful approach is in order. And honestly, by playing at the entrance I could pick off the Children of Adam, I just laughed at everyone's weak weapons. The power of consumerism trumps all. And once I was done clearing out the nucleus, I wandered my way through the command center, commandeering the robots, and spilling pop all over the motherboard and having to get a new laptop a day before a big project is due. Also, I need to remember not to walk directly onto an exploding legendary robot. Bad habit of mine. I then spent a long 30 minutes playing around in the memory banks. Yep, totally played around with the memory, don't mind me. But I actually did the mission correctly because I typed in the console wrong. But I went through the first 3 missions on God mode because I could not be buggered with this horrible mission. The worst part of Fallout 4, by far. Well, the first stop in getting the keys to the party is at the Vimpop factory. Can't have any competition ruining my monopolistic plans. The mutants outside weren't much to write home about, and inside there are a few masters to contend with. I'm at level 45 at this point. I now see where the 0.1% of natural flavoring comes from that they market made with natural ingredients. After clearing the base floor, I traveled into the basement and found the corpse of Avery. The skull and locket are going to be instrumental in getting the ending I want. Well, I ended up getting lost trying to make my way out of the building, wandering into the corporate HQ. I swear my memory is getting worse as I get older. I should probably record beating Skyrim with a torch soon. That should be an easy run. My next stop is at the Grand Hotel in the far south, and besides sending the wolves packing, not much occurred during the travels. The hotel was pretty simple, mostly with my range being pretty good. There was a pool party that I was not invited to, then again I was never invited to anything. And the interior of the hotel was pretty run down and probably full of bed bugs and used condoms. I got my information to pick up the nuclear keys, and I began to hike my way to the southwest. Well, Far Harbor has heavy vibes of New Vegas in story design, and the first rule in New Vegas is to never go directly to your destination. Well, besides the classic Fallout 3 filter, it was a pretty quick jog to the wharf, just having to deal with the fire-breathing anglers. I did have to take off my power armor to go for a swim. I then got some keys to a submarine, and next up is the northwestern part of the map. Seems over here those plastic glow-in-the-dark drinks managed to get into the wildlife, and the mole rat really did not want to play nice. Also during the travels, the hermit crab was forced to step outside and interact with the public, and close to the destination, I had to deal with an albino wolf who dropped the best weapon in the game, bar none. I'd love to rip through the commonwealth with this, but damn it, bloody weapon restrictions. After dealing with more wildlife, I took a swim and dug around to find a password to make Far Harbor lizard food. So now it is time to wrap up the DLC and start cleaning up the island. First order of business is taking care of the child of Adam, and when I got there a few respawned, so more free experience for me. I climbed up the sub, laid waste to the religious nut shops here, including Tectus, and I put the keys to initiate self-destruct. Sure, everyone is dead, but you gotta make sure nothing comes back. I escape with no resistance, watch the fireworks outside in the water, reload so I could get a better view, and now that is 1 out of 3 settlements done. I returned to Acadia and I thought I could convince Dima to turn himself in, but he's not having any of it because 3 charisma, so plan B and I just go to Far Harbor instead. Well, the nice thing is to tell Avery and cover the whole thing up, but instead I talk to the angry asshole who reminds me of my hometown, and he dispenses wasteland judgment on Avery. Yeah, the town is really unhappy about replacing the leader, and short circuits her wiring. Well, I returned to Acadia and began to clean up the place. At least I got the kill on Dima and Kasumi, and Kenji won't be very happy with me. Well, Faraday thought he could be far away, but yeah, you can't deal with these explosions. Well, I wrapped up the DLC for the most part, getting the Far Harbor only survivor route. But let's thin that out a little bit more. Also, as a note, I can't kill anyone in town at the moment because for some reason everyone is essential. Don't worry, there is a plan W. I return to Acadia and go down the hill a little bit into the wind farm maintenance and proceed to get to the deepest reaches of the lab. Alright, forgot about the close range part of my weapon. Second go around I mine the gap and corrupt the wind farm by downloading the totally trustworthy link from the sketch email for potential sponsorship with Stremmer, and when I returned to Far Harbor, the town was overrun with the wildlife. Well, it is open season, so I start to fire willy-nilly at the locals and locals. Yeah, the town is bone without the fog condensers. Well, after Far Harbor is wiped out, I returned to Kenshi, told him this is a kill 'em all run, and once I got my experience sting, I finished off the Nakanos, wrapping up the DLC, so just one more DLC left. Before I dive into Nuka-World again, I figured some more cleanup is in order, and sadly I must be a bad neighbor. I entered town and set everyone's essential status to 0, then began spring cleaning. Well, I am in a prime spot, so Cleo is now in Apatra, and Daisy is pushing them up. I think the real hero of the town was a random settler who stole Cleo's fat man and launched one at me. They might have missed horribly, but I appreciate the effort. I do feel bad that the third rail went off the rails, and McCready did not make it out. The State House was also quick culling, Hancock was one of the first to go, and Fahrenheit is now in Celsius. I blasted through the hotel and memory den, wiping the last of the major settlements off the map, and I totally didn't forget about this place. Until now. Well, I figured since I returned to Sanctuary, I should probably get all prepped for the hardest place to clean out, that being Nuka-World. I store my junk that I don't need, and upgraded my armors to hopefully survive a blast to the face. When I got into Nuka-World, I shanked, and now it is open season. Don't worry, I'm not going to be roaming for 5 minutes straight in a sadistic manner. Just talking normally in a sadistic manner. The raiders more or less line themselves up into my firing line, and given ultimate armor, I just laugh at their small fire. The first thing to clean out is the pack, and the best approach to this is to let everyone bunch themselves up so I can blast them apart. I might have failed an ambitious plan, but I like to think my runs are somewhat ambitious, if not totally unhinged. The battle was quick, and I can proceed into the next raider base. Explosive weapons in a small space. What's the worst that can happen? Well, everyone just walked into the small cramped space that is just asking to get blasted. On my way to the final den, Sierra missed her chance on getting some Nuka-Cola, and I fought through the courtyard outside Fizztop, and the disciples were pretty tricky, mostly moving around the blast radius. And at this point my armor is in shambles. Once I had the courtyard under control, I had to return to Sanctuary to repair it. The disciples are a pain to deal with, mostly with their stupid knives and getting up in my grill. I hate climbing this place, but once I could spread out the forces, I could start picking them off one by one, and eventually the disciples could meet their gods, if they are even accepted, and for the most part that is everyone in the park taken care of except for one. There is one raider in this mountains due for punishment. Well, I returned to the trader den. That kind of started this whole thing, picked off the last few of the stragglers, and turned in the mission for some experience, and pushing myself up to level 50. Well, one final thing to do here, and I've freed the vendors of their jobs, so now they can work for the raiders in the afterlife. So with all that done, the only thing left that remains is finishing the game. I hand in the quests I have been sitting around for probably 2 hours, and I still don't have enough completed quests to have Preston happy. I have 90% of the commonwealth converted already, most from immoral means. While to clean up, I proceed to rig the race in my favor by giving every racehorse some soda that is caffeine free, walked blindly across the bridge and fell in the water, recruit Nordhagen to the cause, and not take the settlement by force, and when I return to Preston, he is finally happy enough with me to start defending the castle. Today, I really don't have much in the way of backup. They're all just having severe caffeine withdrawals. Yeah, let's just say that. So it's basically just me and Preston with a flamethrower. I did build a bunch of turrets so I didn't have to aim nearly as much. Well, that and my big blast radius is enough to take care of a bunch of sins at once. If I was able to solo 100 plus sins at the Institute, this is small fry. For the most part, every sin stayed outside the castle, and I just had a point and click, and eventually the forces were routed, and I got my key to get me back into the Institute. It was a quick jog over to the pipe, had to kill a couple raiders along the way, but thankfully I could get into the Institute with my power armor, something I was a little afraid of. The power armor does sink like a rock after all. The jog through the sewers was nothing too strenuous, just wading through 200 years of fermented soda-infused piss, with the occasional ghoul along the way. Once things transitioned to the old Institute, I generally know where the sin spawns are, so I could take them out without getting my arms blasted off my body. When I got into the Institute proper, I found my pile as tribute for the bountiful harvest I got, what feels like forever ago, and brought in my disposable backup, and Preston still has his portable barbecue. We charged through the old robotics, just blasting the robots from afar, and firing when my gun feels like it. I didn't spare any mercy, I just went along at my leisurely pace. When I got to bioscience, there wasn't that many scientists here, then again, I did do a stand-up job so things weren't that crowded this time around. As for the courtyard, sure I had my firing issues, but for once my backup is actually competent and actually spawned for once. It was a pretty easy time clearing things out, and the legendary synth must have had a bad boot up and never bothered fighting back. Once things were cleaned up, I descended into the underground pathway where I found my tribute I made for the prospect of a bountiful harvest, and when I went into the director's office, I was expecting Sean to be in his deathbed, but it was empty. I typed in the director's password, and as I was blasting apart the backup, I went searching for where Father went. Seems he slipped on the stairs. Then again, it was all chaotic and a blur. When I tried to go into the reactor room, I went into the wrong room. Just more free experience, and the fight into the reactor was pretty simple. When I got into the room properly, I started to pop off like how a bunch of colas in the late 1800s and early 1900s were filled with coke, hence where the name came from, and I just had a jolly good time. Once again, the legendary synths were just derping around. I guess they didn't get their systems upgraded in time before the first cleanse. Since I can't hurt kids, a moral thing or what little I do have, I told the fake Sean to get her front row seats to the fireworks. I fired off a sponsored firework display as a marketing stunt, blowing up the Institute and getting a massive civil lawsuit with protest due to negligence and successfully beating Fallout 4 with a thirst zapper, but we aren't done with the run just yet. After skipping the ending slice because he loved to crash on me, I talked to Preston and the next course of action is blowing up the Bridwin. I mean, all that's left on board is 3 tweens or something like that, but hey, it is on my cleanup list so it's gotta go. Thankfully when I got to the castle, I already had enough settlements built with the artillery, so I let loose another series of fireworks to try to make it up to the public. Yeah, I end up in deeper shit because of it, and a bunch of vertebrates descend on our position. The battle was very anticlimactic. Because of the firepower I had set up at the castle, the Minutemen are actually competent for once, and my weapon is just jank incarnate. We would just blow up the vertebrates before they even had time to land their soldiers. The battle really wasn't that exciting. Well, after about 5 minutes of catching soldiers in midair, and showcasing how flight simulators normally go for me, the castle is safe once again, and at this point, it is the end of the run. To celebrate a victory, I made everyone still alive unessential, then started with Preston. Now he can help the settlements in need of help in the afterlife, and then Ronnie met a similar fate. Sure, the remaining soldiers weren't too fond of me dismantling leadership, but don't worry, there isn't any bossing left to help. To celebrate a victory over making me do too many quests this run, I offered the oceans a sacrifice, then I went around to each remaining settlement, clearing it out so the total is 0. Now that they have served their purpose, though at Green Top I did have to clear out some super mutants, I think I ended up hurting more than helping. Also at Taffington Boathouse, I never built a settlement beacon there, but I guess I had some squatters taking refuge here. Well, they aren't living squat now. And all that is left is Sanctuary. Mama Murphy sure knows about all the trouble I've gotten myself into, so I showed her just how much of a troublemaker I actually am. Yeah, Cosworth wasn't very happy with me, so I fired his arse. And yeah, I went around the rest of Sanctuary blasting the remaining settlers, and all that was left was Sturgis, which I cannot harm. I guess he's a child at heart, and also a synth. So I couldn't kill them all, but you know, that was a fun April Fool's video. And yeah, it was also a very long run. I am tired, my hands are sticky from the soda, and yeah, the high-powered third Zapper was fun to use, but at the same time, it is such a pain in the ass to get. It fires so slow, and the reload is such a pain and a glitch. I do wonder what game I'll try to kill everyone with a pacifist weapon for next year's video. Who knows? Well, I guess with all that done, I guess I'm still alive. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give a like, subscribe for more masochism, and any other ways to torture myself, leave them down below. This has been Orpheolus, and I'll see you all in the next one.